Alright, today I wanted to try something a bit new to me. I'm just gonna call this Coffee with Gwyn. And this is where I just kinda just chill, spew out some things I just want to talk about. I have the need to want to just talk about certain topics sometimes, and I wanted an outlet to do so. And I decided, hey, maybe let's give this a shot, right? And today, I wanted to talk about the new Fire Emblem and my history with the series. Fire Emblem has a really, really close place to my heart. And at this point, due to yesterday, at the time of recording this, the new game got announced. It is called Fortune's Weave. And I could not be any more excited. It feels like I'm back in the day when Three Houses was announced. And that was a time to be a Fire Emblem fan. Now, this series, if, I turn it into a series, will just be me rambling and talking about things I enjoy. The topics can roam from anything, really. But, yeah, today will be all about Fire Emblem. Not sure how long this is going to be, but I really, really just wanted to talk about it. So yeah. My history with Fire Emblem is vast at this point, and I didn't realize it until recently how long I've been playing. It feels like just yesterday. So, essentially, around 2015 or 2016, it was after Corrin had been put into Smash 4, and I had just started really talking on Discord. I had met a few people at the time, and they really were into Fire Emblem, and I never even thought about playing the games, I'll be honest. It just was never a series I was too interested in. But eventually I was like, you know what? I'll give it a try. So I started playing Fire Emblem Heroes. Needless to say, I saw the character designs and I was like, you know what? This game kind of sucks, but I really like these designs and I kind of want to find out more. So I ended up going to GameStop and purchasing Fire Emblem Awakening. And I fell in love almost immediately with the world of that game and the characters, mainly the characters, and that'll be important later. Those characters I just grew to really enjoy. Seeing how Chrom and every character in the game interacted with one another for the most part, of course. Not everyone had supports with each other in Awakening, but I really, really enjoyed it. It was unlike any other game I had really played at that point. Beforehand, for example, the closest thing I could think of is Persona or SMT, but that is so different from those games. And I just found out, wow, this isn't a gameplay type that I would consider me loving. Yet, there I was, playing Awakening, not just once, but multiple times. I played it a few times in a row just to experience different ways of playing. One male Robin, another female Robin account, and then just different romance options I did, different Morgans, different characters I put together. That was one of the most fun elements of the game, I think, or I know. That was why I enjoyed the game, was because of stuff like that and the characters' relationships with one another. I also did like the gameplay, but that wasn't my favorite part about the game. It was how the characters interacted with each other, and how the story unfolded. That's not even to mention some of the map designs, and mainly map themes, especially at the beginning of the game. I believe it's chapter 10 or 11. After the event. I don't want to quite spoil big events in these games as I'm going through it, but if you know, you know. It could even be Chapter 9, actually, now that I think about it. It's been a while since I've played Awakening. But I had beaten the game, and I was like, man, I really need to dive into this series. So I took a further dip. I actually started playing FE7. I didn't have the money to get Fates at the time, so I just played that game. And I'll be honest, playing through that, I ended up liking it better than Awakening, at least at the initial point in time. I'm not really sure how I stand now since it's been so long since I've played both of those games, but I really, really enjoyed my experience with FE7. I found myself really connected to, like, Ninian and Ellawood. I know a lot of people don't like them, but even to this day, I'm an Ellawood defender. I think he's a really good protag, and he's my favorite of the main trio in FE7. Lynn's alright, and Hector's Hector, right? Everyone loves Hector. I've never met a single person who dislikes Hector. Maybe he's not their favorite like me, but, like, it's Hector, right? Now, that being said, I don't completely love FE7. I mean, you know, there are those plot holes everyone talks about and, like, all of that stuff, but it's never really bothered me, and I also do think it's a bit, like, overinflated, personally. I still think the story is quite enjoyable, and the characters are also amazing in FE7. I think they're all peak, and my favorite two characters in FE7 aren't even the main characters, not even close. It's Nino and Matthew. Both of them, I think, are some of the best characters in the series for very different reasons. Matthew in particular is a character I just love, and Nino is like my daughter, so I love FE7. Going from there, actually, I decided to pick up FE6. I got through, like, I want to say, like, 6 chapters, and I was like, I'm bored. I stopped playing. And I did the same with FE8. And I was just like, I'm not vibing well with these games right now. I'll pick them up later. And then I finally got Fates. And let me tell you, it was just more of Awakening and what I enjoyed about Awakening. The characters were a little less focused, but I didn't mind since there was so much to sink my teeth into at the time. I played Birthright first, and then I played Conquest. Fun fact, I've actually never completed Rev to this day. I didn't own it, so I didn't really have a way to play it at the time, but I did own both Birthright and Conquest, which was cool. I definitely, overall, on my first playthrough, enjoyed Birthright more. I just liked the characters better on that route, overall. But thinking back, I'm like, I think it's very split for me. Like, I like characters on both sides quite a lot, but then, like, the other half of the side of that route, I just don't care about that much. So it's very split, which is ironic. Didn't mention it during the Awakening portion, but I really love Selena or Severa. And she's in both games, so I took the dub. Which, you know, leads me to the last part, of course, of these games, which is, you know, the story's awful. It's atrocious. I don't really need to go too far into that, right? Like, most people know the story's not that good. It was just a mess in production, I can assume. Or from what I remember hearing, which is fine, you know. The games are still enjoyable, and I think they are a little bit too overhated. Which I understand, honestly. I do. The games aren't for everyone. Speaking of not for everyone, the games I actually played after Fates, which is kind of funny, considering they left me with two, like, different feelings. I should put them all technically as the next 3 games, because they are, in a weird way, connected. And that is, I played Shadows of Valentia, and then I played FE1 and FE3. I loved Shadows. Amazing game, had a blast with it, and to this day, there's nothing quite like it, right? There's nothing quite like that game, and I think of any Fire Emblem game, you will either really like that game or just really dislike it. I can't see people being too mid on it for the most part. Like, for me, that game is definitely high up on my list of favorite FE games, just because it's so unique. Like, one of my favorite things about that game is, like, the dungeon crawling mechanic. That is super fun. I loved the hell out of that. It was so different, and I wish there's more stuff like that in the future. I really do. Maybe in the FE4 remake, if that ever happens. In 2028, right? Besides the point, FE1 and FE3 as a whole, I didn't enjoy. So I was like, you know what? Let me try the remakes, right? Let me try the remakes. I knew FE2 was different, so I even tried that, and let me tell you, I did not like any of those 3 games. So I put them down, and I've to this day never played any of the first 3 Fire Emblems. Just not all the way through anyway. Just not enjoyable. Not enjoyable at all to me. A bit too dated. I know people can enjoy them, just not my speed. Maybe I will try them again at some point, but yeah, that's my 2 cents on those games. But then I played the remakes for FE1 and FE3. I actually have never beaten New Mystery. It did not do it for me. That's probably my least favorite Fire Emblem, I'd say. There's no reason for me to go back and play it, and it did not hold my attention at all. And unlike FE6 and FE8, which I'll get back to in a second, there is not much in that game I see as a redeeming factor. Like, even with the older 3 games, there is some sense of, man, this game, this is an old piece of history, there's value there. But with that, it's just like, it's just super forgettable, Now, I do think that after I beat those games, I started to hit some sort of, fatigue, so I had stopped playing for a little while, right? And at that point, we had actually gotten news of a new Fire Emblem, and that was 3 Houses. Being around the community at that point, it was unreal. There was so much hype and intrigue behind that game. Every analysis video, everyone discussing the game, the character designs, their personalities, the website, updating them, etc., etc. It was just, you had to be there. That is one of the reasons why that game has such a special place in my heart. But when that game came out, I was in its world for months, and even to this day still am. It is one of my favorite games of all time. 3 Houses, officially solidified my love of the series. Even my first game, Awakening, I loved it, but it wasn't a game I was like, yeah, that's for sure in my top 10 or anything. But 3 Houses, with its character depth and story and world building, I fell in love with it, and I will always heavily recommend people play that game. But after that, after the game ended, I played all the routes. I had that itch back. So, I did not pick up FE6 or FE8. I went and I played Genealogy of the Holy War. Let me tell you, that game, probably the most unique experience I've ever had playing a Fire Emblem. It is definitely, to me, hit or miss as well, just like Gaiden or Shadows. Which is why I'm most intrigued about the remake, or if we ever get a remake, because that would be an incredibly hard game to remake. It's hard to envision how a remake will go. There are so many different factors regarding that. But the game itself, what we have presently, is a game I think people should still play. I think Genealogy of the Holy War is a game that might not even need a remake. To me, it's timeless to some extent. That game is hard to compare to anything else. It's such a unique experience, and again, just like Three Houses, it's something that I cannot recommend enough, and people should go play them. Which leads us to Thracia. Now, after beating Genealogy of the Holy War and experiencing that masterpiece of a story, I was kind of taken aback, not gonna lie. I didn't know where to start. Because I thought about playing Path of Radiance, or Sacred Stones, or FE6 again. But then I thought about it, and I was like, no, I should probably play Thracia next. But I was worried, because all I ever heard about the game was how it was the hardest game in the series, and how unfair it could be, etc., etc. But when I played that game, let me tell you, it is my second favorite Fire Emblem, and it is only due to one reason, and that is the experience I had playing that game for the first time was one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. I was suffering. And not in the way I'm used to with like games with like really touching stories, in a way of, wow, this game's really kicking my ass and I really want to beat it, so I can say I beat this game. And I did. And it was incredibly rewarding. I got the feeling from Thracia that people explain you get from Dark Souls. Which, by the way, short comment, I've like never gotten from those games except like Bloodborne and Elden Ring. Most of those games just, I'm like, okay, I'm done, bye. But besides the point, Thracia gave me such an accomplished feeling after beating it. And it's not even just that. That's not even why I love that game. I love it because Leif, to me, is really the best protagonist in Fire Emblem. He's a actual, like, he's not super complicated, but he is a very good protagonist, and very underrated, too. Like, I don't understand, you know? He should be talked about more. And the whole, like, darkness of the plot in that story is, like, kind of nuts. Like, all the children, you know, I just, damn, like, that story's crazy. But yeah, I regarding the remake, I just can't see how it will work. You know, Thracia's already kind of messy, slotting it into the middle of the story, I'm pretty sure, so if they make an FE4 remake, they could make it one game, but yikes, that's also messy. So it would be like 3 stories in one. So like you would play FE4 and then Thracia and then the second half of FE4 in the same game. But they'd have to like change some events around, right? Either way, messy type shit, right? But I think they'd figure it out. They made Gaiden work, right? And that's a bit easier, I would think. At least from we can see with hindsight that they did an incredibly good job, you know, remaking it. But moving on from there, I went to FE6 again. I actually beat it. I didn't play everything in that game. and to this day, I don't hate that game. It's just like, I'd rather play FE7 of all the GBA games. Same goes for Sacred Stones. Actually haven't beaten that to this day. Again, just that game just never really took my attention. I never really liked the characters in that game. The only only two I really liked were, I think it's Marisa and Joshua. Joshua for sure is my favorite character in that game. He's just really cool. His design is excellent. Now, the last two games I officially played in the series were, of course, Path of Radiant and Radiant Dawn. Did I say Radiant? Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. Yeah, I really, really love those games. They're excellent. They're some of the best in the series, and honestly speaking, I wish they were easier to get a hold of. That should just be a thing. Of course, since this is coming out or being recorded the day after the Direct, we just saw the Galaxy games are coming to the Switch too, and I'm like, bro, come on. Let's make sure Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are ported soon, because these games are incredibly hard to come by, and the more people get copies, the more copies are just never going to be in people's hands that would play these games. Yeah, so I hope they especially get physical releases. Games are just not getting the physical releases like they used to, and it's kind of wild. I forget what game it was, actually, but it was like, oh yeah, it might have been the Galaxy ports. They were like, yeah, this game is digital October, and then it's physical in December. Why? Why? Like, really, though, why? It's like Black Myth Wukong. That game took a whole year to become a physical game. Like, what the hell? It's really sucky, actually. But yeah, Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. While I really enjoy those games, I don't have a whole lot to say. I will say I think I do like Path of Radiance slightly more than Radiant Dawn. Just because to me it's a more focused story, and I do like the maps a bit better. But for Radiant Dawn, I can understand why people don't like the party swapping stuff in that game, but that is my favorite part of that game. It's excellent, and I do think that might be a thing in Fortune's Weave. It seems like it. It seems like there's 4 different, like, main characters. The Alucard guy, the girl who I think is really cool looking. I think her name's, like, is it Leda? Who has, like, the guitar. The woman who seems like a complete badass. And the main character, Kai, I think was his name. I do think there's going to be like 4 like stories going on simultaneously that we play through. Kai, of course, seems like the actual like main character, but I am very intrigued with Fortune's Weave, and that's why I wanted to talk about this stuff. Fortune's Weave is a sequel to Three Houses. Probably, it's in my top 5 favorite games of all time for sure. And I could not be any more excited. And the fact that this is a sequel or prequel is nuts. Now, what do I think? Is it a sequel or a prequel? I'm hoping it's a sequel, but I'm hoping it takes place, and it looks like it does take place in like Brigid or Dagda, or even Almyra. I'm leaning towards Dagda or Brigid because I don't think it's Almyra, just off instinct, I guess. Especially since Three Hopes had a little bit more to do with Almyra. But I really, if I was to choose, I would like Brigid, because that to me is the most interesting place we didn't see too much of in the games. Also, I guess part of it is, I think it would make sense for either Dagda or Brigid, considering, like, going off Dedue and Petra's designs, I think it fits quite a lot, right? So yeah, I'm excited that it's placed in one of those places. I just hope that the story is told well. Regarding the sequel or prequel thing, honestly speaking, I feel like the game itself is something that could be leaning into... There's a few different ways that this could go. So one is, we see at the end Sothis is there, and she looks older. Or, presumably, in my mind, this is what I think. I think that's what she looked like when she actually passed, right? We know dragons do age, and it takes a long time for them to age. And I think when she died, I think her like body like reverted due to her powers. So it naturally took time in her throne room to have her body like age to where it was when she died. Because I feel like since Rhea was around in Three Houses, I think Rhea was already pretty goddamn old at that point, considering Saros, right? So dragons take ages to age. I really am just rambling at this point, but point is, I think this is a sequel. I think this is for sure a sequel. I'm much more leaning towards that than a prequel. I also think it's weird. She talks to the screen like you are the MC, probably Kai, right? But she's acting like she's talked to them before. And we see in the trailer, well, at least I think it's the Sword of the Creator. I'd have to go back and check. But it looked like the Sword of the Creator. What I think is a possibility, I do think there might be some reincarnation involved with Byleth. Either that, or it is Byleth, and Byleth's in the game, and, I mean, they do have dragon blood, but my issue with that is, you know, they'd have to pick a gender for sure at that point, and I don't think they would do that. I don't think they would for sure pick a canon gender for Byleth. But yeah, I do think that overall this game looks very promising. And no matter what, if it's a sequel, prequel, time travel, reincarnation, Dagda, Almyra, Bridget, whatever, I am so excited to see where this leads, and these character designs look incredible. I'm so glad we're back to this and not Engage, which I know I didn't really talk about, but all I'm going to say is the gameplay is fine in Engage. I know people really like it, but the gameplay, to me, which this may sound silly, is a little less important than the characters and stories, because that's why I love Fire Emblem. I love Fire Emblem because the characters. I love it because the short stories and support conversations and, you know, relationships you build with the characters when you're playing through the game. That's what I love. I love the choice, the consequences, etc. It's great. But Engage? It felt more like Fate in the worst ways possible, in my opinion, in terms of like character writing. Though better than Fate's, mind you. I'm not gonna sit here and say it's worse than Fate's writing. I mean, I love Setsuna, but like fucking one-note characters, right? But I just didn't enjoy them all that much. And that's why I'm glad to be back to this. I'm glad to be back to a world like Fodlan. You know? I'm glad to be back in a place where, you know, I care about the world itself, and I'm hoping that it's just as strong writing-wise as Three Houses was, if not better, because there were flaws in Three Houses. There are quite a lot of them, right? But it's a game I love. It's a game I fell in love with. And to be back in that space will be unreal, and I'm glad to be here along the ride. Yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble. I'll probably put Persona 4 Golden gameplay on in the background of this. It's from my Twitch streams, and I just started streaming. Yeah. I'll be playing that on Twitch, so come on by if you like Persona. And yeah, thanks for chilling. I'm not good at outros, so yeah. I might play Fire Emblem as well soon. Really soon, maybe. So if you're interested in that too, come on by. Don't know if it'll be Awakening or whatever, but I'm really in the mood to play some Fire Emblem. Other than Persona and Fire Emblem, I might also play Hollow Knight soon for the first time blind. And yeah, thank you for listening to me ramble. Peace out.